Hello everybody! Welcome back to another episode of Minecraft How to Build. Manticore here, and today I was kind of looking around our How to Build world, and after we built our watermill in the last episode, I realized that the landscape around here was looking pretty bare. So I'm thinking that today we'll go ahead and come through this whole section all the way back to the watermill, up to about these trees, and if we have some time, we'll go ahead and do some work over here near the farm pens as well. So basically, today's episode is going to entail tree building and bush building, and we'll probably go ahead and litter in a few rocks here and there because why not? So getting right to it, we're going to go ahead and start over here in this little section. And because I had to clear out so much forest in order to make room for all this, we actually have a lot of bare space. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of a few things here that we probably aren't going to need in today's episode. I think I'll hold on to the bale just for the heck of it. I don't think we'll need the chain. One thing I'm kind of thinking about doing if we have the time is maybe doing a little wagon or something over there by the stables near the farm. Because the reason that we made that stables walk through, or made it so that you can walk through the stables, is because the idea is you'd have a horse and it would be pulling around the cart, you'd collect up the wheat down here, then you'd take it to the mill to be milled into grain or millet, whatever happens there. And then you'd go back through there and you can pretty much drop off the horse and have the cart and whatnot. So that's my logic behind this little section. Another area that might not be too bad for it is if we did a little wagon right over here, since we do have a lot of space. I was originally thinking just doing a really big tree, but I think I like the wagon idea too. So we're going to want, we already have it. We're going to want both oak and spruce because we want to make sure that we're switching up our tree builds. We don't want everything to look the same. And then I'm also going to grab some diorite wall. Now, you might have noticed it a few episodes ago. I didn't really go over it, but we actually made a little diorite aspen right over here. So it has kind of a thinner trunk than your typical birch trees, and I'm from Colorado, so I see aspens around a lot, and that's kind of what inspired me to do something more of a tall, thin, skinny aspen tree. Alright, so coming back right over here, I think we'll go ahead and start with our aspen tree. Now, when I'm building trees, I usually refer to them in 3 different sizes, being small, medium, and large. To put it basically, let me grab a fence here as well. Okay, so basically a small tree would have a fence trunk like that, a medium would have just a single trunk, and then a large tree is typically has a solid 4 oak trunk square base, if I can figure out what I'm saying here. But so that's typically how I differentiate between my custom tree builds. And so, I don't know, these custom aspen trees, they're somewhere between a small and a medium size. But one thing about aspens is they are really tall, so I want to go ahead and, that might be a little too tall, I want to go ahead and do something like that. And we'll go ahead and throw on some oak leaves here up at the top. And when it comes to building custom trees, there's not really any one way to do it. You can throw in some extra fence or whatever you're using in order to make that trunk to add a few branches that kind of stick out. Something like that, or what I would recommend doing when you're first getting into building custom trees is look at some references of actual trees and then kind of go based off of those. You can see, is this a tall tree that has a lot of leaves up at the top? Is it kind of more of a wider oak type tree? But definitely do some exploring and kind of know what you want to build here before you first get into it. I think that's the best way to go about building custom trees. Now, this is looking kind of funky, but we don't want it to be too big, so it's okay. It's coming along. And I'm thinking a little something like that. Oh, it still looks pretty weird. Let's throw in some things down here. I'm not a big fan of this too long branch, so I think we'll go ahead and get rid of that. It's kind of throwing off the build. And then we'll do something like that, maybe? Oh no, that's a little too rounded. Something down to here. Yeah, a little bit something like that might not be too bad. Then we'll just make a smaller sort of section around the trunk here, which just one on each side. That kind of brings it down into a wrap. I think one more right there. Never be afraid to add on more leaves if you think it's looking a little too sparse. I think something like that, maybe? Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now, I'm not using any references for this build. I know I'm not going off of what I'm preaching, but pretty much we're going to be doing so many different trees throughout here that I don't really have one specific tree in mind. So we're kind of just going to be adding stuff all throughout the place. And now I want to grab another kind of leaf. And then maybe I'll do some jungle leaves as well. This kind of just helps to switch things up a bit. And that way it doesn't look like you've got the same exact leaves everywhere you go. So it's kind of like a bigger, leafier bush. Maybe we'll add a little bit more to it here since it does have such large leaves. And then for a small birch type bush, this one you can tell has really small leaves, so we'll keep that kind of a smaller sized bush and maybe just put it right about there. Now another thing that we're going to want here on our hotbar is we're going to want to have that bone meal handy. When you're setting up landscapes, you want to go ahead and have primarily bushes, trees, and then also just regular grass like this. And you can just go through if it gets a little too thick and kind of cut some of it back. And you don't want flowers absolutely everywhere, so you can go ahead and mess with it however you want, just whatever looks good, but basically you want it to not look like that, like it's been modified. So now this might be a little too much as far as the amount of grass goes, so we'll go ahead and cut back a little bit of that. We don't want it too overgrown since this is still a town or village. Now we'll go ahead and grab some oak leaves. And we'll just make a little bit of a bush right there. And, I think I want some stone slabs. And that way we can just go ahead and speckle in a rock back here somewhere. So it's not super noticeable, it just barely can be seen through the grass, but it's a little bit more color to the ground. Okay. Now coming through here, I think we're going to do a medium tree next. We'll go ahead and build it with spruce logs. Something maybe a little bit like that. Okay, and we'll just go ahead and build up around that. When I'm first starting to cover up my custom trees and leaves, I try to cover up all of the wood areas first, so that way I can kind of get an idea of the shape that we're going to be working with. And we'll go ahead and do that. And so now, while it's looking pretty wide from this side, we want to go ahead and add some more to the sides because from here it's looking a little funny. So we'll go ahead and do a little bit something like this. And we actually want to take that one off, but something like that. Okay, so now this style of tree kind of has more of a vanilla style to it in the sense that it's a little bit wider down on the bottom and then gets smaller as it goes up. We'll do that and that. And we'll set it back to day because it's getting too dark. Okay, so now this is still looking a little awkward to me over on this side. I'm not really a fan of the way that it sort of goes down like that. So right now I'm just trying to fill it up so that it's a little bit more rounded all on every side. Okay, and it's a little bushy up at the top, but I think that'll be fine. And it does have a pretty vanilla look to it, so it kind of goes with the rest of the forest beyond. Now we'll go ahead and throw in some more bone meal and add some more grass to this. And as we're getting closer to the edge of the forest, I don't mind there being a few more flowers to it, just because this is more of the overgrown section, I should say. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and add a little bit of grass over here as well. And we'll throw in a rock. Maybe right about there. Then grass. And some more grass. Okay, now that should take care of the outer section. And then right in here, I think I'll go ahead and play around with building up a little wagon. Now, I have absolutely no idea how you'd make a diagonal wagon, so we're not even gonna try. Today, it's just gonna be a really simple horizontal one, and let's see, I'm thinking something like this. I've built one of these once before in one of my other worlds, so I kind of have an idea of what I'm doing, but at the same time, not really. Oh. Oh my gosh, the struggle. Alright, let's do something like that. And then I think the wheels were on the outside, something like that. Let's take this one more out, maybe. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. And then we'll worry about the front section here in a minute. Now, this is just a super basic wagon. Nothing too fancy about it at all. Okay, we'll throw in these. And you know what? I think rather than doing half slabs, I want to go... Normally, I would do trapdoors in here. That way, it could ideally be sat on, but I guess in this case it is just a cargo wagon, so it should be okay. And in that sense, I think I'm actually going to make this a little bit smaller, because I want to make sure that we have enough room for the pulling beam that will be up here in the front. Let's go ahead and grab some metal, not metal, some iron bars. Definitely won't be needing a trap door in this, or a regular door in this build. Not a big fan of that. Let's see, what else can we do here? I think up front, I want to go ahead and do... Oh, maybe just some regular old stairs. See, I'm not a big fan of that just because it's so bulky. I'm gonna think on that one for a little bit and then we'll come back to this because right now this is just a little too plain. Alright, so we'll build up a little small tree, I'm thinking right about here. And this one's pretty much just going to be like a little sapling, so nothing too big. Now we'll just do something like that. And then I want to build a large tree right back here. Now the large trees are where things get a little bit more complicated, but I want to do one block like that. That way it kind of looks like it's got a little bit of a knot in it. And you know, let's go ahead and bring that one up. And then we'll go ahead and build here into the ground. And one thing that I do forget a lot is the fact that we now have these all around bark blocks essentially. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these out. And we'll use those right through here on the root section. And we'll do a little bit of something like this. There's no right or wrong to it, it's kind of just playing around with it and seeing what you think looks good. For this, I feel like it could go out a little bit more. Yeah, I guess that's good. Okay, so we'll go ahead and, oh, you know what? I want to actually add on some slabs here as well to kind of give it more of a gradual incline. Maybe right about there and right through there, maybe? Oh, I think that should be good. Well, let's see here. Maybe it's something like that. Yeah, we'll go with that for now. And now coming back up to here, we're going to go ahead and keep building up. And you can use the fully wrapped around bark blocks if you'd like to, or you can just go back to the regular logs. If I were building this in survival, personally, I would probably just do the regular logs since it's a little bit less work to go ahead and try and figure out. Oops. Actually wanted that block. Let's do something like that, I think. And basically you're just going to want to build up the branches. Down here, I think I do want to use one for there. And then we'll come down around to here. So this is kind of what we've got going for our large tree. Now it's looking pretty good. You could, if you wanted to, you could even leave some of your trees without leaves to kind of make a large, more dead look to them. In this case, we will go ahead and add some, but first I want to look for some fence. The fence are good as kind of a smaller branch. So we'll just do something a little bit like this. Okay, and we'll go ahead and call that good, and then we'll just go ahead and throw in some leaves here. And since this is such a large tree, I am using jungle leaves. Go ahead and cover up all the wood, at least down to the trunk. Okay, so now that we've gone ahead and gotten leaves around all of the bark, we want to go ahead and build it up a little bit more because as you can see, it looks kind of bowed and it's a little flat up top. So when we're not falling, we want to go ahead and add a little bit more heights to the top of this tree. And I'm thinking one higher than this should be good. And so with this, I'm just kind of deciding how high I want these leaves to really go. And then once we have that height set, we can kind of just start filling it in and trying to build up closer to that section. We don't want our branches that are out here to be too out of place. We want to kind of build those up gradually to this point as well. Okay, so a little bit something like this should be helping out a lot. And in just a moment here, we'll go ahead and back up too so that we can see how this is looking from afar. Okay, so if we back up to here, you can tell that it's a lot fuller now, and it doesn't look so, I guess, bowed or restricted. But we're just going to go ahead and add a few more leaves on here to give it a little bit more form. And then you want to do a once around all the way around your tree so that you can make sure that there aren't any angles that look a little strange. So like through here, I decided that this looks a little short, so I wanted to go ahead and build it up a little bit higher. Okay, so something like that, I think. Yep. And then let's make this a little bit more gradual, one right there. And this looks a little skinny up top, so we'll go ahead and add to that. Okay, I'm thinking that's looking pretty good. We'll go ahead and build this out a little bit further. And I think that is going to do it for this one. Okay, so now that we're done with that large tree, we've done a large, we've done a medium, we've done this in between and a small. And so now we're just going to go ahead and add a few more trees around the place, and then I'll be back to wrap up that wagon down there. Alright folks, so that is going to do it for today. As you can see, what I did with this wagon is I went ahead and at first I tried using an open gate, which I did like. However, I decided not to keep that since it didn't quite fit with the rest of the pole, and so by using only fence, it kind of looks like a beam is just resting down there slightly. And we went ahead and used chain as our little horizontal metal piece, basically, along with a little stone slab to kind of look like more mechanical works right down there. We also added these trapdoors along the back. That way, if you had your wagon full of wheat, then in that case, it would pretty much be full and it wouldn't fall out the back when the horse is pulling it. So that is going to do it for today. As I mentioned, I hope you did enjoy this episode. I know there wasn't a whole lot to it, just a bunch of trees here and there and a little wagon. But on the next episode of Minecraft How to Build, we are going to be covering... Now, I've got something in mind, but I think for the next one, before we get to our larger project, we are going to go ahead and do a storage shed for our little vegetables and whatnot over by the Manual Crop Gardens, which is sort of back in the center of town. So if you want to check that out, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss it. And also, if you did enjoy this video, hit that like button as well, because that really does help me out. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching all the way to the end, and I hope you have an awesome one. Later!